Runa, tanggal ko. Tara tanggal ko.
Uway sa tandulas ka pa.
It's important to have Indigenous people telling stories.
A constant stream of sounds and images emanate from our world. These signals create a living history that never ends.
Television is something that is just an extension of our traditional culture. It's just moving it into a new age.
National Indigenous news daily on NITV.
Maori television exists simply for the promotion and revitalisation of the language.
It's very, very, very important that children seeing a positive role model speaking in their language on the screen.
Indigenous broadcasters in New Zealand, Australia, and Canada are beaming an everlasting voice of once fading languages into the airwaves. They provide an outlet that showcases the talent of many independent production companies. In New Zealand, the Maori television channel broadcasts nationally in the Maori language. To fulfill its mandate, Maori TV creates programs in the language, and it also broadcasts Maori versions of programs originally produced in other languages.
Maori television exists simply for the promotion and revitalisation of the language. That was the reason it was established. And so we have to meet that expectation. Our children's programming is in 100% language.
Much of our battle today is because many of us didn't hear what I call the silencing of the language. Because I grew up with it, and all the people I knew all spoke it, I didn't hear it getting quieter and quieter in the community.
Hoi, e tā, kei roto nā koe? Puta mai, kei hea nei rā koe?
Ko te mahi nui ke hoki te tuatahi. He whakauru I te reo Māori ki roto I te reo o a mātou tamariki, o a mātou mokopuna. Ki roto I tō rātou ao. Ke kite I rātou ko te āhua o tō rātou reo. Ka taia te kawe ngā tini āhuatanga o te ao whānui tonu. No reira I tīki nātou e mātou ngā paki waituhi. Nā te hana te mea ko te mahi o te paki waituhi, he hopu I te hinengaro o te tamariki.
Hoi, e tā, kei roto nā koe? Puta mai, kei hea nei rā koe?
It's pretty good. Let's move on with the other line. He atua te mana. And that's how you would say it in Māori.
He atua te mana?
Tau ara whainga, he kura.
When the kids see it, they're seeing it in Māori. And that normalises it. It becomes a Māori cartoon.
Hoi, e tā, kei roto nā koe? Puta mai, kei hea nei rā koe?
Independent Maori production companies like Cinco Cine are commissioned to create as much original Maori language programming as possible.
Tiare, kawe ware tō I, muri tō oti, ko oti ia mātou. Ko te reo Māori, he reo hei kawe I ngā whakaaro Māori ki te ao. Hei whakaahua I o whakaaro I roto I a koe mō tōu ao. Nō reira, ki te kore tērā e tika, kua kore e tika e pono rānei te āhua o te whakaatu I te whakaaro Māori ki te ao.
Nā reira tamariki mā kai hea te kura o te rani nei kai roto I a roto rua. Ko te aha te ino o te kura o te koutu.
E te tini e te mono tēnā rarau mai rā ki tēnei hōtaka tātou e ki ana ko mai!
So is that talent-driven, or are you just...
Kay Elmers is another independent producer who makes original programs for Maori television.
Learning to play an instrument. Well, Miharo really grew out of my own experience that my tamariki, my two children attended and still attend Māori language education, and I was really concerned that there was just nothing on screen that was reflecting that experience for them.
I whai tūru au ki runga, taku wai Māori e ne.
So they get it in the classroom, but we can give it to them out and about, at the zoo, at the airport, at the fire station. We actually show the kids that it is a real living language that can be used anywhere. It's not just for school.
Awanui Simic is part of a new generation of Maori speakers and is now directing a popular Maori educational show for children.
Haere mai. Mahia te mahi e tēnei rā. Ai, hanga whare rāpiti mātou. Tino pai, āhua whakamā te whānau nei, ki te mahi nei mahi I mua I te kāmera, engari ke te pai noiho. Ai, ke te haere pai ngā mahi.
Kia ora, ko Aorangi taki ingoa.
Ai, ko Mahia Jackson. Ai, he whakaari tēnei, he whakāturanga tēnei I roto I te reo Māori. Inga wā katoa, āhua taumaha I ētahi wā ki te rapu, ki te mau I ētahi talent, kare ai mohio tu, kupu. Ētahi tangata e mohio ki te kōrero Māori, ki te mahi e nei mahi, huri ki te reo Pākehā. Aorangi tēnei, ko tia paunamu tēnei, ko papa hone ahau. And then we could just we'll cut in for that last line.
Awanui is a graduate of the Maori language nests, and her linguistic skills are now an asset in the New Zealand broadcasting industry.
All these young people have come into Māori television and found a home, and it's been particularly their fluency or their facility in the language that has enabled them to be able to come in here if they've had an interest in broadcasting and simply found a niche.
Rāpiti mātou, mahia te mahi.
Kia ora, ko Jackson taku ingoa.
Australia is a vast country that's home to many Indigenous languages, broadcast venues, and Aboriginal production companies. Some of the longest-running programs for Aborigines are produced from mainstream broadcasters here in Sydney.
Message Stick is probably the Indigenous program that will be watched by the majority of communities around the country.
Yeah, well, we need to go up to one of the schools up there.
The Indigenous Programs Unit was established by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, or ABC, in 1987, with the objective of becoming a centre of excellence for production of Aboriginal television in Australia.
We'll just sneak through here. And given the fact that we are within the ABC, the Australian Broadcasting Network, we have a reach which is far greater than any other network in this country in terms of reaching audiences, remote audiences in particular.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of Living Black from Redfern in Sydney. I'm Carla Grant.
Living Black is a current affairs program on the special broadcasting service SBS.
Seeing kids play around the place and enjoy being...
The show has been going since 2003 and it tackles the issues affecting Indigenous Australians, contemporary issues that are being dealt with out in our communities.
Mainstream media have been reporting on issues affecting the lives of Indigenous Australians for over a decade, but the languages are seldom heard because the programs are presented in English.
We've done a number of stories on Aboriginal languages and successful organisations that are trying to preserve the language and keep it alive and teach it to their children. Indigenous language is very important to our people because it's part of our culture, and over the years it's been a policy to kind of wipe that all out and to get us to forget our culture and our language and everything about ourselves.
Australia was once home to over 250 languages, but today the languages have been nearly wiped out. Only 20 are still spoken, and that number is dwindling.
For me, language is definitely one of the issues that we, need to address, and I think it needs to be treated more seriously. We have all of these unique languages in Australia, and we actually have the highest rate of extinction of languages in the world.
If you want to experience the original languages and cultures of Australia, you have to visit the producers who work in the more remote parts of the country, where language and culture are still strong.
CAMA was established in 1980 as an independent Aboriginal run and controlled media service, and the original intention there when we set it up of course was to provide news specifically to an Aboriginal audience, both in English but also the 3 local languages of Central Australia, the Arandic languages, the Western Desert languages and the Walpiri languages. At that point in time there was absolutely no broadcasting or media service for Aboriginal people in Central Australia at all, or anywhere in Australia.
CAMA grew from a little northern station in Alice Springs to a regional network called Imparja.
Nan CAMA Radio Ngama from Nangarum CAMA Radio 8K FM.
When we got the licence for Imparja, we were given about $3 or $4 million to train Indigenous broadcasters, and they've ended up all over the place.
Small community production companies and remote broadcasting services popped up in many different communities.
Grounded. I'm your host, Tara Muller, so let's check out what's coming.
When I came down here, I saw Imparja, which is an Indigenous television station, and I just always wanted to work down here. Being born here and moving away at a young age, I always wanted to find out what it'd be like to live in the place that I was born.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another awesome episode of Grounded.
Young Aboriginal people like Curtis Marriott, who are returning to their roots, produce some English programming for CAMA.
So you know what you're going to say?
Track
I know
Park.
a few words, but that was one of the main reasons of coming back home, was to learn more about myself, about my culture, and help preserve it.
Remote media is very strongly about language and keeping the language strong, and we try as much as possible with all of our programs, our broadcasting, to do that in Indigenous language.
For years, Indigenous Community Television, or ICTV, was the hub for local programming in remote regions.
And you're watching ICTV!
It was so popular in the communities. People absolutely loved it. They loved seeing their own stories, their own language, people that they knew were on TV. Everybody had access to that service. It was something that communities felt like this was theirs.
You never know who you're going to be interviewing on any given day. I love being on the cutting edge of what's happening in Indigenous Australia to hear the latest news.
Now, National Indigenous Television, or NITV, is taking community television's frequency on the airwaves.
National Indigenous News daily on NITV.
NITV's role in representing the Aboriginal voice in Australia is extremely important. Television is a medium that everybody grasps. You'd be hard-pressed to find a person out there who doesn't watch television. And it's also a medium that I think especially Indigenous Australians can really cope with, because traditionally we put songs and stories to a picture anyway. That's part of our culture, and television is something that is just an extension of our traditional culture. It's just moving it into the new age.
I'm really proud of what NITV are achieving. I think it's great. It's something that's long overdue. We've only just got our own national, television network, and I think we're far behind, the rest of, the other Indigenous nations around the world.
Community television is finding a new way to reach its audience: the internet.
So IndigiTube is something that we've created as a sort of a web-based way of getting remote stories, both radio and video. It's basically what was the BRACS program in Australia, the Broadcasting for Remote Aboriginal Communities scheme. What we've done is take that to the next level, basically say, okay, well, we've got the infrastructure. We already have our own TV transmitters in our communities. Why don't we set up a computer and have all of the videos on there instead of having a shelf full of videotapes? Now we can have them all as QuickTime movies. You can get a playlist together and watch one after the other. We want this to be people telling their own stories and for it to be real. It's not manicured, it's not polished, it's not for, you know, to make it look like white fellas have made it. It's actually, this is the way people tell their stories, and you know, I think that there's a real value in that. These guys aren't really experienced filmmakers, but they took the camera out, just filmed what they would naturally do in their lives, which is go out, you know, shooting kangaroos and then cooking them up out in the bush. But basically, it's just daily life in the community, and people just document that on video. I think that the national audiences would absolutely be fascinated by the types of programs that are being made in remote communities, and we think that they would accept the type of production quality or production values that are also being made, because it feels like local people are telling their own stories.
APTN, the Aboriginal People's Television Network in Canada, faces the same challenges as Australia. It also transmits to an audience that speaks many different Indigenous languages across a vast territory with limited funds.
Our audience are looking to us to not only provide language programming, they're looking to APTN to provide entertainment that could be in languages. People say, well, you need to do language programming. We want you to do language programming because we think it's very important. However, we either don't speak the language ourselves, don't understand it. I wouldn't mind learning it, but you have to entertain me when I'm learning it. I'll watch what's entertaining. I want to be entertained. What this means is we're starting to look at developing programming that will hopefully meet that entertainment goal, entertainment objective they've asked us to put forward, and at the same time will support the language, will provide the language programming that we need to do to ensure that the languages survive and flourish over time.
Hello, I'm Todd Lammer, and this is your APTN National News Update for January 22nd.
15, 20 years down the road, I could see APTN hopefully having grown to the point that we will have a broader range of language programming, but we will have it in genres of programming that people will want to watch.
Covering so many languages over such a vast territory, APTN often presents different language versions of the same program.
Wapuspe started as a short story that I wrote in high school about my grandfather up in the north and him witnessing the changes around him. Nice. We are now into our 4th season of Wapuspe, and every episode, like we'll be done 26 at the end of this year. Every episode has been both in English and Cree versions. Looks good, man. How many shots from this angle?
I'm pretty sure just 2.
It takes 8 hours of painstaking work to create 1 minute of footage. 11 sets with 11 animators are constantly working to finish the shows.
These are gifts for your mothers. Each leaf is a coupon.
Right now, putting plasticine on the character's eyes, just to get them into that mood.
In this shot, these two have to do some breakdancing. My mom is Cree. I myself don't know my own language. To me, it doesn't make that any less important. It's who I am. I want to, in some way, help out in preserving the language, especially because our show is targeted at kids.
Wapas Bay is a family affair. The stories come from the imagination of Dennis, while Melanie is involved with the Cree programming.
I find that the higher Cree words, they're gone because of a lot of our elders have passed away, and that content of that branch of our languages is gone with them if it's not passed down. All of our language are all in danger of being lost.
The stories are created in English, but after editing and shooting, Dennis turns the Wapas characters into Cree storytellers with the help of voiceover artists like Jackie Keenach.
That's my Devon. Mommy did the money go my house. This spike. He were the Tungi Mutzigitin. You people sit down. You can you hear we give it to them? Two identical? Camionagon. Tanihmagai, Tapachita, a big school no Gistano. Kia no Matsumani here. You are Magiano Tagi. Tagi Pachita, a big school no. Tariknisto Tagaya Simwe. Gistano Gisun Toitamugai. Monea with the schemaya, Gistano Mike the Tagi no go howe, Tagi Nuxi, the Big Square, Gistano, Tanskis and Stock that way, when it's told Tagaya Simwe.
Do you know the Cree word for stealth?
Let me hear what I used. Oh my god, Devin! How?
Okay.
I hung around a lot growing up, around Cree speakers, and they'd all speak Cree. And you pick up on what they're saying, even though you don't understand the language. And especially when they say, "Oh," you know what they're talking about.
It's very, very, very important that our programs are seen in that way, as well as children seeing a positive role model speaking in their language on the screen. I love the direction that it's going. It keeps growing and evolving. Our language, I don't know how you say it, the pockets of languages that we have is also expanding for Wapas Bay. All of the productions that Dennis and I have done in the past have always been in English and Cree. Now they're expanding to English, Cree, Inuktitut, and French.